business taxes. Was stressing about all the time and all the money you spent on your taxes.
This is my bill?
Now Business Taxes is a TurboTax small business expert who does your taxes for you and offers year-round advice at no additional cost, so you can keep more money in your business. Now this is taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com/business. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Tackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Tackhead Sean and Tackhead Clint. And we're working on immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Tackheads Radio.
Tack News. Tack News.
Radio.
Tack News. Tack News.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
Into the silo.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.
Days happen, and so yeah, time passes.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that.
Day by day.
Thank you so much.
By day.
Day by day.
You're welcome.
How
I
are
missed
my
you.
Friend? I missed you too, and I'm really sorry I couldn't be here last week.
No, you're not. You were having an amazing time.
I did have an amazing time, and I teased it. Let me just adjust our Periscope here. Just trying to get us on the air. There we go.
Not a big deal. Quit bragging. How many live? How many people saw us live?
5.
At least 5. I was going to say at least
6.
5.
No,
Worldwide.
I did tease it, but so last week, it was my mother's 70th, Saturday, this past Saturday. And my brother, who also lives out here on the West Coast, and I, our family surprised her. She had no idea we were coming, and we did that on. We arrived Thursday, surprised her Friday, because we didn't want to do the surprise birthday. It was a surprise birthday party anyhow.
Right.
And when you're dealing with 70-year-olds, you don't
want to give her.
You don't want to do too much, right?
The poor gal a heart attack.
Right. So we did the surprise. It was really cool. I told you we showed up at the New England Aquarium. My brother landed the day before. My mother knew he was coming to Boston.
Now, why would she know that?
Because
I thought it was a surprise. I remember you were all excited about the surprise. Everybody was going to surprise your mom. You were super excited about it. So I'm a little surprised to hear that your brother didn't surprise her. So.
I was actually a little surprised, too. Actually,
so maybe the surprise was on you?
We were all pretty surprised. But, yeah, no. Well, we call my brother the golden boy for a reason.
Okay.
He could do no wrong with mom, and et cetera, et cetera. So, either way, what had happened was, he somehow my mother guilted him into it, or my mother made him feel bad enough that because the way we had set it up is that nobody was coming.
So let me get this straight. She was probably doing the mom thing, like,
she was being a martyr.
Spending my 70th by myself.
Yeah, it's so horrible,
right.
And we don't really have much going on.
And the thing is, moms know when they do that.
Yes. Oh no, are you kidding me? My mother knows what's going on.
Yeah.
She didn't just fall off the turnip truck. So, so either way, my brother picked her up from the house and brought her over to the airport. Brought her over to the aquarium.
Mm-hmm.
And then out in front of the New England Aquarium, great aquarium, by the way, if you've never been.
I've never been.
But it's a great aquarium. My brother brought her there, and then as they were looking out front, they have a sea lion and seal exhibit that you can watch, even if you don't ticket in. And my brother brought his kids and my mom there. And then while she was there, she didn't know they were there. My son ran up and tapped her on the back and said, "Hi, Nana." And it was a pretty awesome moment. So, and then, of course...
Did she at first not know it was him and, like, kick him? Because she's your mother.
From Boston.
And from Boston, right?
Right.
Wrong Nana, kid. And then, like...
The hell away from me. I'm no Nana.
Right. Give him like a Velcro
and she
tennis
was
shoe
kind
to
of
the
drunk,
face.
Which is normal.
Right. Oh, yeah. Irish, right?
But it was awesome. So, and then Saturday was the big party. And I got to see my family and my friends on top of it all, so that was really good too. So we had a good time.
So the big question: how much Jameson did you consume while you were
St.
there?
Patrick's Day, the night before. We arrived late Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. I was in the air, which is why I couldn't even call in and do the show. And then Thursday was St. Patrick's Day. I'm not going to say much more than Booker's Bourbon.
Okay,
got their money's worth out of me that night.
And your liver as well.
My liver. I was...
It's actually, I heard that the amount of bourbon that you consumed was actually enough to preserve your liver in perpetuity.
Yes!
From now until the time you expire 30, 40 years from now, and even beyond. So you're no good as an organ donor if anybody needs a liver. However... Nobody needs to spend any money trying to preserve the thing to study.
I'm pretty damn
because
preserved.
They're just going to do it anyways.
I'm pretty damn preserved.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a long St. Patrick's Day, but it was good. It was a good time, and then
Awesome.
somehow I recovered up, and then flight home.
Are you kidding me? You're still drunk. I can still smell it on you.
I wish.
I know. I do too.
Where's the bourbon? Oh, it's up there.
It's
That's
up
good.
there. It's almost empty.
The best part is my brother-in-law the next day going, yeah, there's no way you'll ever drink bourbon again, huh? Because I was pretty bad off. I mean, I haven't been that drunk in a long time. And I'm the first one to admit.
Like in at least a couple weeks.
No. Honestly, I'll be straightforward with you. It's been a couple years.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't have to drive anywhere. I had no responsibilities per se. Kids were in bed. We were just a whole group of adults hanging out. We were at a great fire. It was a great night, and... Booker's Bourbon, which happens to be my new favorite bourbon. I have a couple, but that was really good. Nice and smooth. Yeah, I crushed it. So
awesome.
If Booker's would like to support the show after that glowing endorsement, we're a guy who, would probably drink kerosene to get drunk in his youth is telling you how great bourbon is. That's probably not the best endorsement you
Now, hang on a second. I like Booker's.
Yeah. Booker's is awesome.
Booker's is awesome.
So
that sounds like a great trip.
I'm just saying. No, it was awesome. It was so great to see my friends and family, many of which listen to the show. So it's been a while since I had been able to spend time with them and have them ask me about the show, etc. So
stop winking when you say that. That's not nice.
Hold on. Just looking at the camera.
Yeah. Wait, is your face on the entire time?
Yes.
Hair thinning can happen for so many reasons. Whether it's stress or hormones or anything, at Nutrafol we've learned that real change starts below the surface. Our hair growth supplements take a whole body approach and target the key root causes of hair thinning, so you can see visibly thicker, stronger hair in 3 to 6 months.
Hair growth starts from the inside at Nutrafol.com. That's Nutrafol.com.
We're on Periscope.
So they're just staring at your face. Poor
yes.
things.
Well, they have the nice drapery behind us.
See, this is why you should sit over here.
I know.
That way they can catch both of us.
And if I try to turn it around, the angle's all wrong.
It's all wrong.
Oh, no, wait. I can get you on the side. Wait. Okay. I can get you next to the... So in the front of the image on Periscope, you can see my mic stand.
Okay, so we can move that.
And mostly your nose.
Well, that's right.
I'm going to flip it back normal.
Yeah, do that. Do that.
Just it's much better that way.
Do that.
How are you, my friend?
I'm well. So I said when we were doing our intro on Periscope earlier that I have a story to tell. I think the story's hilarious. Other people may not. So apparently, my 6-year-old figured out how to watch shows that I have DVR'd.
Right.
And I figure this out when and they're no, I don't have anything like that on there. But I figure this out when my 7-year-old, right? First of all, they must have woken up very early because they usually come in and get me up, or I wake up with them. So my little guy was still asleep. And I get this when I get up or whatever, and I'm moving around, and about mid-morning, my 7-year-old kicks me in the rear, and I look at him, and he says, "That's an attention getter."
Smokey and the Bandit.
Yes, yes. And I look at him in complete disbelief, and I said, "Where did you learn that?" And he laughs, and he doesn't answer me, right? So I didn't put 2 and 2 together at this point. I'm like, okay. Fast forward to lunchtime. Hey, what do you guys want to eat? Making sandwich. What kind of sandwich do you want? Or whatever. Making lunch. And my 7-year-old looks at me and says, "I love a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper." And step on it, I'm in a hurry. And then now I know, right? And I look at him, and I was like, "Did you guys watch a movie on the DVR? Like how?" And he starts giggling. He starts laughing. And he's like, "I love that sheriff."
Oh, yeah, Buford T. Justice,
yes.
baby. Classic.
So apparently, they woke up very early. Early enough to watch some Smokey and the Bandit and then crawl back to bed. So they had to get up like at 5 in the morning.
Yeah, 5 a.m. easily. Oh, man.
So I think that story is hilarious.
I think that's a great story.
Out of the blue, right? Out of the blue, 7-year-old. That's an attention getter. Come on.
That's an attention getter. Oh, man. We have a ton to talk about. We got to get into it.
You can think about it, but don't do it.
Oh, and don't play with yourself. It wouldn't look good on my highway. Let's talk about the big board of topics. What do we got coming up? 10 minutes past the hour.
So right now we have a segment.
Think about it.
A segment, but don't do it. Let's get out of here. I'm staying right here. What a great movie.
Let's start off with something light.
So this segment is called Hello America.
Hello.
The Hunt for Red October, Little Kim style.
For Yellow October?
So I sent this story to stop. There you go again. Ladies and gentlemen, the blatant bigot. SHR Media does not endorse the personal views of Sackhead Sean. Wow. North Korea was missing a submarine.
Yeah.
And this is a story I wish we could have done the show last week because it was even funnier when it first came out. And I haven't heard anything since, so I don't think they found it. Like, I've tried to search the interwebs.
I think it's funny we're doing our first show on Periscope tonight, and we're talking about a submarine. But go on.
Yeah, no, totally unplanned. Don't worry about it. So it was a 70-foot class, huge sub. Huge. What was it, like a boomer for them? What was it, like the turtle from the Civil War? Did they find, like, the blueprints from the turtle from the Civil War and say, oh, you know, they got, like, American intel?
That's a boomer.
And so they built, they're like with the hand crank or whatever it was. You know that's what they did, right? Because the plans for the turtle were all over once they raised it or they found it or whatever
it's
it was.
Horrible, I think of like the Civil War, the first submarine.
That's the one. Yeah, the turtle.
The turtle. That's right.
Yes. Where it was like, you know, the blueprints were out and they thought they got probably like top-notch intel. So they recreated it. But then I read on, and it's a midget submarine. It's a diesel, say, not for like midgets, but
why? Because they're North Korean.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a crew of 2, and then I was thinking, I was like, wait a second, somebody else had midget submarines, and they weren't very successful. The Japanese.
The Japanese did not do well with midget
submarines.
They
did not do well with midget submarines. And then I thought to myself, well, okay, so maybe they didn't steal the plans for the turtle from us. Perhaps they stole plans for midget submarines from Japan's archives, and they thought they got some top-notch intel. Well, either way, not very smart.
They side by side the plans, and they were like, "Whoa, this thing is modern as hell."
Right. And what I want to know
Find
is...
me 2 guys we don't like. We have a mission.
No. Find me 2 of our best.
2 of our best guys.
Find me 2 of our best. We have our first boomer.
Boom!
And How is it nobody can find a diesel-powered submarine? I'm pretty sure we could stick one of these microphones that we're talking into right now into the ocean
and find it
right here off of California's coast,
and the latest,
somebody would find it.
The latest on it is that they think it actually sunk.
Shocker.
Yeah, I know. But it was...
Nobody ever accused North Koreans of being submariners.
Right. It was right on the beginning of the joint training operation between the Americans and the South Koreans, rather. Specifically the Rock Marines. And so they thought it was another one of the, they like to throw their little missiles into the water when they get pissed. That's their temper tantrum.
Yeah, so basically here's what I envision. They're going to launch their subfleet of one midget submarine.
Yep.
With like a stick of dynamite or whatever it has for armament. I don't know. They're going to launch their one submarine and then shoot missiles into the ocean. It's
literally those rubber torpedoes you have in the pool that you use to throw and dive after.
Right. It's a guy with a drinking straw and he has to blow out.
Blow the ballasts. I thought that'd be much more interesting when we blew the ballast. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was it. We just blew it. That was it.
Look at this I don't know, but you thought it was going to be a lot louder because old technology. This is obviously top technology, so it's quieter. It's practically a stealth diesel sub.
So I'm looking, we get some information. The Revolutionary War, the Turtle was actually the single-person submarine on September 6, 1776, and this is Agador found this. It's pretty good.
Okay.
It attacks the HMS Eagle anchored in New York Harbor. So that was the first one.
So that's the one that North Korea, I think, thought they got the plans to, but they thought it was like current intel.
Right.
And then I read on into the article, like I said, and then I found out it was a two-person sub. So then we're thinking perhaps they got the Japanese plans. I don't know. Like, how good is their intel agency?
The Hunley was the Civil War submarine.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
so
you.
that was cool.
Thank you,
Agador.
Thank you,
I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. So my question now is, since the submarine's missing and we know Little Kim listens to Sackheads, and we basically just told him that his high-tech intel that he created these subs from is old, World War II era and Revolutionary War era technology.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder which one of their spies is going to get executed as a result of this folly. Because somebody was sent to steal like Ohio-class sub-plans.
And they come back
with right, a cross between the Turtle, the Hunley, and a Japanese World War II midget sub.
And you know what? Just picture for a moment if you're right. Let's just say...
Because it's a stretch.
Let's just say Riddle Kim listens to our show.
Right. We know he
does.
And
he hears this. And he's like, oh, I'm going to execute somebody. The last words in that poor bastard's ears will be our show playing.
As convicting him.
As the convicting evidence.
As evidence.
Oh, man. That is horrible. Horribly funny, but horrible nonetheless. Oh, man.
I love that story. It's just a feel-good story for me.
It is the feel-good story.
It is the feel-good story for it. Now, there's something else that came out. That I wanted to talk about because it's kind of hilarious. So, do you remember when North Korea detonated a hydrogen bomb?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the name of that bomb was?
No.
They called it the H-bomb of justice. I can't make this up. This stuff writes itself. This is like a horrible Austin Powers moment. Detonate H-bomb of justice. That's just a ridiculous, over-the-top, just completely ridiculous superhero, supervillain statement, is it not?
Absolutely was. Absolutely is.
Like you could picture Dr. Evil. Detonate the H-bomb of justice.
Detonate. We'll hold them ransom.
H-bomb of justice preparing to detonate.
Anyhow. Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're 100% right.
So, Little Kim, if you're still listening.
We're sorry.
Whoever came up with the term H-bomb of justice, it was probably stolen from an American movie, which was a joke. that style of speech should not be. You should have like H-bomb of doom. You might as well call it something like that.
H-bomb of doom,
right?
The kick-ass balls out H-bomb of death and shit.
Right. No. That's actually kind of a cool name. That's actually kind of a cool name, Sean.
That would be a cool name.
It would be, right? Something like they'd name it like the firecracker of bigness, like something like that.
Firecracker of hugeness.
Of hugeness.
Oh, good times. Unfortunately, Yeah, it's just sad to me that they keep trying to do shit and it always backfires. It's really like a horrible TV show.
And here's something else. So they start these war games with the U.S., which you kind of touched on. North Korea then threatens nuclear strikes on us.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up in a different time.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up where I was taught, as soon as somebody says, I'm going to kick, you don't let them finish their sentence.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Right? I grew up in it, and that was acceptable at school when I was in school. If somebody says, I'm going to kick, they have clearly demonstrated their intent to kick your posterior region, and at that point, you were justified in self-defense. Now, if you went overboard, obviously different story, right? But you were absolutely justified to tee off on the guy.
The H-bomb of retribution.
H-bomb of retribution.
Time bomb of the ancients. These are Agadors. Oh my god. Sorry. If you're not in the chat room, shrmedia.com, you can click live chat. You can see some of these great comments yourself.
The weapon of boom.
The weapon of boom.
So if they're saying they're gonna strike us, why wouldn't we just? And I know why we don't, but why wouldn't we just do what we did to Gaddafi?
I brought that point up today to somebody.
Did you really?
Yes.
Why would we just not go over there and drop a couple bombs in Little Kim's front door?
Yeah.
And call it a day.
Absolutely.
Send a message.
Yeah.
Are you still going to kick anything? I don't think you are.
There's no kicking to be done.
So shut up.
Just stop it. And I'm talking to the administration.
Right.
You're not going to do anything, so just shut up.
Just shut up.
Our administration.
All right. Next segment is yours. It's called Boston Strong.
Yes.
But only after SCOTUS makes them.
Interesting. So the Supreme Court 2 days ago ruled in a case called Caetano versus Massachusetts. Woman.
I'm a little disappointed in how you said Massachusetts, but go on.
Massachusetts.
Thank you.
This woman gets arrested. So essentially it's a domestic violence situation. She's in an abusive relationship with the father of her 2 children. She's a very, very strong, small stature, 4'11", very thin build. Her ex-boyfriend / father is much bigger than her. Shows up at her workplace, constantly harassing her. Despite the fact that there were numerous restraining orders in effect, somehow that he just kept going.
How can that be? The government told him he couldn't.
Right. So why is he still doing it?
Right.
Recalls the case out of last year where the woman got restraining orders against the boyfriend out of New Jersey. And then as her application for her concealed carry permit was being processed, she was murdered.
How can that be?
Exactly. So this kind of brings up, it brings to the point that she went out and got a stun gun. Well, 140 of the Massachusetts General Law, Section 131J, criminalized the private possession of stun guns. It essentially says you can't own it. Massachusetts has been long avoiding the legalization of stun guns, as other states are. Now, most parts of Massachusetts are pretty shall issue, and I've said this before in Massachusetts. When you get outside the greater Boston area, you actually get into some pretty rural areas and pretty conservative areas. It's much like California, where the large populous Worcester, Springfield, and Boston really kind of drive the election process in that state, even though they do have a Republican governor right now. But so this young lady goes out, gets a stun gun to protect herself. She gets caught with it by the police. They arrest her, and it's a felony. It falls under the Dangerous Weapon Act. So she gets convicted. She appeals. It goes all the way up to the federal Supreme Court, SCOTUS. SCOTUS rules on 2 major questions that were part of the case. whether or not this particular law, which criminalized the possession of stun gun, infringes on the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms, and whether or not the Second Amendment protection applies outside one's home in case of a homeless person. This young lady, Katana, was homeless. And essentially, and I know you have the full dissent there. I'm looking for my notes on it. But
the affirmation.
Affirmation, sorry. But essentially, the court turns around and says, first of all, yeah, you can't have a law that completely forbids a person from protecting herself, especially in this situation. They refer to the Supreme Court on the scope of the Second Amendment. It does not extend the Second Amendment right articulated under Heller to cover stun guns, which is on page 8 of the decision. Which is interesting, too, because if the Second Amendment doesn't cover stun guns and regular guns are illegal and stun guns are illegal, well, the Constitution covers the right to keep and bear arms, but not stun guns.
They kicked it. Yeah, they kicked it back to the Massachusetts Supreme Court basically to reconsider it, and there was I think all 8 of them said, yeah, you guys can reconsider it, and the issue was, does stun gun essentially fall under Second Amendment? And the lower court, the Supreme Court in Boston, ruled that essentially something to the effect of the stun gun is a modern weapon that were not in common use at the time of the Second Amendment enacted.
Right.
That's what the Boston court said, and the Supreme Court basically said, hey, wait a second, that's inconsistent with Heller. It extends to arms that were not in existence at the time of the founding. You now get a chance to get it right the second time around. Mm-hmm. So they kicked it back on those terms. And the interesting thing is, here's the liberal argument, right? And let's apply this to what you hear in the Second Amendment. Those guns, that weapon was not around at the time the Second Amendment was written, therefore it's not protected. All right, smartasses, here we go. Computers and blogs were not around at the time the First Amendment was written.
Right, so is it protected?
So are Sean and I not protected? Yes. Because radio was not a medium,
right?
Or a way to conduct news or talk or have or voice an opinion at the time the First Amendment was penned.
Right.
Right? Is this what we're talking about? Does that mean my right to remain silent is different because Miranda wasn't decided at the time?
61, I think. What was Miranda? 60s, early 60s.
I don't even know who Miranda was. It was some guy, right? So what are we talking about here? Why is it we can apply one standard to one right and a different standard to a different right because we like it?
Right. Well, it's popular versus unpopular, right?
Right.
This makes me feel icky. Guns make me feel icky. And I'm sure there's some liberals out there who are like, oh, what they should have said is that the stun gun does fall under the Second Amendment, and therefore they should have kicked it back saying that the stun gun was okay. Completely trying to ignore the gun argument. Like, oh, this has nothing to do with
it. But
modern day, Agador brings up a good one. Modern day abortion techniques that weren't available when SCOTUS ruled on Roe versus Wade.
Right. Look, I mean, you could do this
all day.
All day. You do this all day long. Yeah. Ridiculous. Well, I mean, great story, good for SCOTUS, but they stopped short of ruling it unconstitutional.
Right, but Alito essentially said, in his statement during the case was, essentially no state can make a law to keep people from defending themselves, and once they continue to go down that path, you're essentially talking about disarming the citizenry and ignoring the Second Amendment. That was the gist of his comments.
Right. And
that's a strong statement.
It is.
It's a really strong statement.
It is, but here's the other thing. You know, who was it, Ginsburg, that talked about on the Heller ruling in her dissent where she said perhaps a wiser court will revisit this later? Mm-hmm. We have an opening on the Supreme Court right now.
Right, and that's what they're hoping, is that it kicks back up under a different name.
Exactly, which I think is why it was an 8-0 they sent it back to Massachusetts.
Well, and it's one of those things, too, I almost get caught into the double jeopardy thing. Like, at some point, because this happens a lot, where it's a case under a different name.
But it's not a person that's in jeopardy.
I know, but
it's a right that's in jeopardy.
In this case, it kind of was, right? Because if they upheld it, it would have upheld her conviction And she could have went to prison, lost her children, a lot of different things.
So is she serving her sentence now while this is going up?
Well, she was
Usually
convicted. I think the sentence was suspended based on this. Because we do suspended sentence in Massachusetts for certain things. It's a weird thing. But, so you could actually argue that once this case is closed, it does directly affect her. And you could have the double jeopardy argument that nothing of this like should ever go up and meet the criteria again. Same thing out of San Francisco, the same thing with Heller. Like you said, the Ginsburg dissent in Heller. Why should anything like Heller ever be heard of again? It's been decided. Whether we want it to or not, in some cases, even on arguments that we agree with.
Right. Like abortion,
right.
The abortion issue.
The only thing you can do at that point...
Not that we agree with abortion, but I'm just saying
no,
like that issue
like
where
that
some
issue,
conservatives...
The only thing you can do at that point is pass a law, state or federal...
Right.
That whether you want it to be legal or not, but then you're talking about getting everybody to vote on it, etc.
Or on something like a right. I had this conversation with somebody earlier. With something like 2A, let's say 2A goes away. Let's say some wingnut court comes in and says, yeah, no, it's not an individual right. It can be regulated. It can be taken, whatever it is. And we lose that. It would take Congress or a convention of states to do a constitutional convention to amend the Constitution again and reaffirm the Second Amendment, or make another amendment that says the right to keep and bear arms of whatever kind is an individual right and shall not ever word it so succinctly that it can't be challenged, or at least difficult to be challenged. And that's the way you'd have to overrule that wingnut Supreme Court that tries to take away 2A.
I agree. I just think that this running to mom every time you don't get your decision needs to end, especially for the same problems. Hey, we're up against a break. On the second half, or part two, I should say, of the Sackheads
Part two,
Radio
Terror
Show,
Block.
We're getting into Terror Block, and you get to be on Periscope for the next 30 minutes.
What?
Yeah, I'm turning the camera around.
What?
I can only do one person at a time. I'm turning the camera around, my friend.
You can only do one person at a time? You have not lived. Wait, what?
No,
Thank God we're off the air right now.
I'm sure those guys were glad to see it. We'll be back here on the Sackheads Radio Show live in the SHR.
I was like, wow,
Network.
NBA, huh?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cough for the stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe from Reefer of Common Sense, and we have moved to a new night and time. Every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on SHRmedia.com, you will catch the Reefer of Common Sense uncensored, unfiltered, and only on SHRmedia.com.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Yes.
And I'm back. You're back. We're back.
We're back.
And I screwed up on Periscope.
What'd you do?
I accidentally stopped the broadcast.
Why would you do that?
Because I was trying to turn it around to put you on, and I screwed it up. So I'm going to...
That's something I would do. That's something tech-ish.
Oh, man. Let me see if I can get this straight. And then we'll start TerraBlock.
Well, TerraBlock's mine, so I can actually start TerraBlock while you're fiddle fumbling around. little Vienna sausage fingers.
I know. I thought I had it nailed. I really did. I thought I had it perfect.
But you didn't.
But I didn't.
And what's weird is when you turn the screen sideways, to use your terminology.
Sideways.
You probably... Did you have screen lock on so people are watching us like this?
And, all right, it's live, but I got to make some adjustments. So you start TerraBlock.
Make some adjustments. So what do you think about... I'm just kidding. As you started to get up, I hate
you. No, go ahead.
I know you do. So for those that can see, Sean's station used to be directly to my left. That would be your right as you're looking. And it was great. It had good flow because we could look at each other, we could talk, we could interact. We'd get in like finger fights where we'd point fingers at each other and do like a finger sword fight thing when we would get heated. But now Sean is all the way on the other side, directly behind your basically from where your camera angle is.
Yep.
Is how Sean now has to look at me. And it's very difficult to get into heated debates this far away. Particularly when we're a couple of close talkers when we get upset.
We are close talkers.
So this is not very premium.
I know, it's not very premium. But there's a lot of stuff we'd have to do to reset it. That's the problem.
Let's figure it out.
Well, if we could just get Sacco to come back, this wouldn't be a problem.
Sacco, come back.
You can blame it all on us.
This is bad. I'm so glad that I'm not... wait, I am on camera right now. So, a few things to note in the terror world.
Yes.
The House made a declaration that ISIS is committing genocide against Christians and other minorities, and then Juan Kerry backed that up.
Mm-hmm.
He actually met a mandated deadline, and he came out, and I was surprised. I did not think the administration was going to have the stones to call ISIS's mission one of genocide.
Right.
And they did. But the House approved a vote last week that declared the Islamic State as committing genocide in the Middle East, which at the time John Kerry had not made the declaration as well from a State Department, from an administration standpoint. Now, the interesting part was this resolution passed the House with a unanimous vote.
Right.
When is the last time Congress agreed on anything 100%?
I have to admit, it's actually been a while.
Yeah, at least a while. I don't even know. Has there been anything
after 9/11?
I don't know. There was probably one dissenter, right? We've had one communist in there before, I would imagine. Interesting. Very interesting. So Christians and other minorities in Syria, Iraq, other parts of the Middle East, a statement came out and said, when ISIS systematically targets Christians and other ethnic and religious minorities for extermination, this is not only a grave injustice, it's a threat to civilization itself. And that was from Jeff Fortenberry out of Nebraska, a Republican. We must call violence by its proper name, or this violence by its proper name, genocide. And that, look, the stones to do this, right? To call what ISIS is doing genocide. Now, since this is called genocide, and now John Kerry has come out and labeled it genocide, what the Nazis did was genocide.
Yes.
And everybody agreed, right, the world for the most part agreed that when genocide is being conducted, we have an obligation to step in.
Mm-hmm.
So, Obama, what are we doing?
Going to Cuba.
Right. We'll get to that. This look, the deadline for Kerry to make the announcement was March 17th.
Mm-hmm.
6 days ago?
Yeah.
Almost a week ago.
Well,
and
he's got a lot going on.
So if Congress has called it genocide, if the State Department is calling it genocide, why are we not committing more military there?
Well,
right away. I have not heard Obama make any remarks regarding the genocide. Now, since Brussels, and we'll get into that here in a moment, the president has come out and said it's his top priority as he's watching a baseball game stuffing his face full of peanuts. Peanuts.
So you're saying Raul Castro's nuts?
No.
The president was eating them.
I don't know. Perhaps if
Raul
Castro,
I doubt the president
them,
was forced to pay for them. Right. I'm assuming that.
Right.
As the host, Raul.
Right, and I hope they weren't a mouthful for the president.
Well, you know, if you try to get him in all at once, I think it could be a problem.
I don't know, but I think he could do it.
Right.
If anybody can do it, I think the president could do it for sure.
I'm pretty sure he could definitely swallow some nuts. Anyhow.
In addition to the genocide resolution, the House also passed a measure that would create an international tribunal in order to try ISIS members who are accused of genocide and these other atrocities. And that was a vote 392-3.
Wow. Still overwhelming support.
Obviously, right? Overwhelming support. So this is huge, right? But Josh Earnest came out afterwards.
Jerk.
He came out on March 1st and asked, hey, why hasn't the White House or anybody come out and said that this is genocide? And here's a quote from this knucklehead. He says that the word genocide basically, quote, involves a very specific legal determination that has, at this point, not been reached. Really, jackass? Because Congress thinks it's been reached.
No, I just want Congress to put it across the
your
president's
Secretary of
desk, declare
State
war.
Thinks that it's been reached now. So they made a determination, but the White House doesn't have the stones to make a determination?
They don't have the nuts to do it, no. And that's the sad part, is you have Congress overwhelmingly saying something needs to be done more. Something needs to be done more. They've decided that it was genocide. You had the entire, and I'm sure there are atheists that are in Congress. I think that dude out of Connecticut who looks like kind of like a woman. I think even that person says that this is genocide. You need to listen and understand that something needs to be done. Christians, it doesn't matter, in this case it's Christians, it doesn't matter what group of people are being murdered.
Right. Look, in World War II, the Nazis were exterminating
Jews. And everybody...
Where's the president? Why has the president not stepped up and put forth just a broad plan?
Plan to Cuba.
Yes. Not a plan to Cuba, no. That was tried and it didn't work out so well.
You have to turn around, put a broad what? Put Mary up? Ron, that is way out of sorts for you. We affect people.
We do. We do.
No, not put Mary up. We would never. Though Mary would kick some ass in Washington, and I would love to see that. Go on. I can't believe he said that. We are horrible influence.
So how are we not obligated to stop it? World War II happened. Nazis commit crimes, commit genocide against the Jewish population. We swear we're never going to allow this to happen again. We're obligated to act. We're morally obligated to act when genocide is happening. How are we not obligated to stop it right now?
I can't see how we're not, unless we're going to just throw our principles away, which this administration seems to enjoy doing.
Previous administrations have seemed to think that would enable us to act, right? Colin Powell, 2004, deemed that the Darfur region in Sudan, that what was happening there was genocide. And attorneys apparently at that time said, well, that doesn't necessarily obligate us. Really?
Right.
It's amazing to me because there was a 1948 UN Convention against genocide that called on countries to prevent genocide.
What is the UN doing?
Well, trying to free Palestine.
Right!
What?
I mean, that's the best part about this. The UN, who was born out of World War II to make sure shit like this never happens again.
Right.
We dump all this money into.
Right.
They're the ones who are supposed to be the moral compass, if you will.
Right.
They're the ones that everyone's supposed to get behind.
Right.
And they're not doing, to quote Chris Foley, jack squat again. Even NATO is more active.
France is more active.
France.
This is gonna bring us to Brussels. Look, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and the families in Brussels. Terror attack makes me sick. There's actually a report that came out afterwards that there are potentially 400 fighters, ISIS fighters, embedded throughout Europe that are trained to target various attacks, acting as independent cells throughout Europe, basically in a mass war on Europe. Folks, do you think this isn't going to happen here? Do you really think? And how did these people get into all these countries?
Well,
was it from Syrian refugees? Was it people fleeing the region? I don't know. Was it through lax immigration controls? Was it all of the above? Do you really think this isn't going to happen here in the United States?
Well, there's a great argument. You talk about how Brussels went from 10 years ago being this beautiful, 20 years ago, this beautiful shining city with all these really high-end shopping districts, very affluent, young population, young being the problem almost,
right,
to what it's become now, which is one of the most active terrorist locations outside of the Middle East. As far as planning, activity, amount of people living, I think it's 1 out of every 1,200 Muslims who live in Brussels are somehow related to terror. Is what the numbers are looking at.
I want to talk about Brussels real quick. 34 people were killed in Brussels, and there's reports that saying that the number of injured could be over 250. That number is still not accurate. Explosive devices were used in the attack. More devices were found after the attack. Cowards. They bombed the Brussels airport, subway systems during rush hour traffic on Tuesday. 11 people were killed at the airport when it first came out. There was the metro station near the European Union headquarters where 20 additional people were killed. The death toll has been raised from the initial count of 31 to 34. Now is the most recent number that we have. Almost immediately, it was confirmed as terrorism. The French Prime Minister came out and said, "We're at war.
We're at war. We're absolutely at war."
Once again, there was a great article written entitled "We're at War." Anyways, I digress. We have France, where their flag used to be white,
completely white.
Now there's red and blue on it.
Once again, there is red and blue.
They actually found their testicles.
Yeah. Well, they had to.
And where are we? Watching a baseball game in Cuba.
Our flag's turning white. That's the problem.
Why did the President of the United States not get on a plane and come back to America? Hey, sorry, we got terror strikes happening. I have to get back to my country.
Well, and it's one of those things, too, that when he did speak after the baseball game, he mentioned about 18 seconds, maybe, of the incident in Brussels, and then moved on to trying to promote the communist country of Cuba is a wonderful place and that Raul Castro is a beautiful individual. If you go to High Plains Pundit, hppundit.net, there's a great article that Dan Butcher wrote that essentially gives you a list of everything that Raul Castro was involved with, and now that this president's standing next to him. So that tells you who he really is. The president is he just wants to do nothing for the next year and disappear. He's hoping that's what's going to happen. Reality is, these people are active. Like you said, 400...
Estimated 400 in
highly
Europe.
Trained, and that's what they're saying. They're highly trained
Yeah.
in Europe. Folks, Europe isn't a big place.
No, and
400 can cause a lot of damage really quick.
Well, and again, I bring this home to the United States as well. You really think this isn't going to come here?
Mm-hmm.
It's already here. There's updates on the UC Merced attack, which was the knife attack, again, here in California, where this FBI reports are coming out saying that this individual was potentially self-radicalized, had an ISIS flag, but yet the administration, they won't allow them to call this terror,
right.
The UC Merced attack. So we've had, my opinion, that's terrorism.
Oh, it absolutely
We've had
was
that
terrorism.
attack. And then in California, again, we had the San Bernardino attack,
right,
where obviously our citizens were killed. It's happening here in the U.S., and just because there's intel that 400 fighters are out there in Europe, again, I keep saying it, but they're here, folks.
They're already here.
And the president, look, he basically said something to the effect of, we shouldn't allow terrorists to affect American lives, and I shouldn't allow it to affect or to disrupt my life. Essentially, something to that effect. Basically, that American lives and his life shouldn't be disrupted by terrorist actions. Mr. President, you are the President of the United States. It is your job,
right, to
as the
respond.
leader of the free world, when terrorism happens, particularly when you're Secretary of State and when the House has said what they're doing is genocidal,
mm-hmm.
to come back and do something.
Mm-hmm.
Be a leader. It may not have to disrupt our lives from a day-to-day standpoint. We might not have to cancel the radio show or do other things because there's still things we have to do in order to move on with society, move on with our lives. And I get that. I get what he's saying to a certain extent. But when he says it shouldn't impact his life, I'm sorry, Mr. President, but you are the president of the United States.
That is your job.
You don't get to sit back and have a leisurely day or go enjoy a baseball game when world events are happening, and when there's a potential that this could impact American lives. Whether you want it to affect people or not, it's going to have an effect. And if things are happening over there in Europe, you should probably be getting on the phone. You should probably come home and really get your finger on the pulse of what's happening here in your own country to help ensure
mm-hmm.
that your people are safe.
Well, I had already seen people in social media bring up Bush during the 9/11 attacks when he was in the Florida schoolroom and he was sitting there reading to a group of kids and how he didn't just get up and run out of the room. And there's a difference, in my opinion. First of all, the initial word that he got is that 2 planes flew in the World Trade Center. It may have been terrorism. Mm-hmm. But he also wrapped it up fairly quickly and left right away. But he didn't sit through a baseball game. There's a difference when you're sitting through a classroom with American young children to stand up and go, "We're under attack. I got to go," and run out of the building.
Right.
And take all that security with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, when you're in Cuba, all you have to do is say to Castro, "Hey, we may have to reschedule around the time that you're not persecuting political people, dissidents, and killing them because they disagree. I have to go." And then you speak and have words and then take action, right? One of the biggest things with Brussels and Belgium in general is there's 15 different federal police forces. They're not sharing information. It's very convoluted. They're not doing what we learned after 9/11 and most other countries have gone to, which is a very straightforward system of communication. So that's a big problem in Belgium right now. Listen, Friday they arrested the mastermind of the Paris attacks. They put out that he was talking, and then these attacks happened. 2 of the guys that were involved in the attacks in Belgium yesterday, they were under surveillance by one organization or another, and they were ignored. Belgium is trying, but their system is horrible. I'm not saying that they allowed these people to die, and I'll never say that. I don't believe that was any sort of the case. But
right,
they knew all this stuff was about to happen in Belgium. They knew an attack was imminent in Belgium. They've been saying it for months now. We know about the train out of Belgium with the Americans who stopped the attack that would have been a horrendous attack. One guy with an automatic rifle and a bunch of ammunition on a train where nobody can stop it or save him, and they'll be in the middle of nowhere. That was thwarted. The French attacks, the Parisian attacks, started, or all the attackers came out of Belgium. Belgium imported in the 60s and 70s a whole bunch of Arab low-wage employees to work the factories that have since gone away, leaving no work for the Muslims. There's a great article that is in the Federalist called What America Should Learn from the Attack in Brussels. It's written by David Harsanyi, and he's talking about, if you have a chance, check it out, Federalist.com, about everything that's gone on in Brussels, and one of the biggest things is political correctness. Nobody is dealing with the fact that there's Muslim extremism there as much as they should be because they're so afraid of being called an Islamophobe, as we do in this country. There were people, and I was disgusted at the people who were on social media who, before they even identified the attackers, were coming out and defending Muslims for all the words that were about to come. Oh, you're going to get hit on for this, and I stand with you, blah, 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 blah. And wait a minute. First of all, if the two, as you always say and the left always says, the two aren't related, Islam and these attacks are never related, then why are you defending them before it comes out? And there was another great tweet that said things that radicalize Muslims, YouTube, social media, mainstream media, magazines. How come nobody ever lists Islam as a contributing force? Even if you want to argue that it's a perverted thing, nobody ever wants to talk about how it's Islam-based. Listen, if all these guys were just from random parts of the world and there was no connection other than the fact that they want to be in part of like a Dr. Evil-style group that is just trying to take over and destroy the world and hold it ransom, okay. But it's not. All of these attackers, the common thread are they're Muslims. A lot of them have come through Europe or started in Europe. They've trained in Syria. They got their training from ISIS in Syria. We know that common thread, but people are so afraid to say it.
Right, and what is it that they say when they're committing these attacks?
Equal wages.
No. No, that did different terrorist group.
Black Lives Matter.
No, different terrorist group.
Ooh. Writing that one down. No, they all say Allahu Akbar.
Right, which means?
God is great.
Right. They're doing it in the name of their religion.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not all Muslims are evil doers, right? The vast majority of them are not.
Right.
However, there is a percentage that are. There is a sect within that particular religion that is.
Well, and as time goes on, and I know Agador's in the chat room.
How many Christian ISIS members are there?
Very few.
Like, give me a number.
Bob.
Give me a number.
And it's only because Bob doesn't realize it.
Right.
He just wants to be part of a group.
Right. It's Bob, and only because ISIS
How many Jews are there?
We have affirmative action.
How many Jews are in ISIS?
Yeah, probably like
Buddhists.
Yeah. That's my point. Religion is a component of this.
It absolutely is a component of this.
There is no affirmative. Why doesn't somebody sue ISIS for affirmative action? We know they're here in the United States.
Actually, you know what? I could see Obama unleashing the DOJ on ISIS in that regard first.
Right? How many non-Muslims are in ISIS? 0. Religious discrimination. So somebody can't join their group without converting?
Right.
How's that legal?
I don't understand how it can be legal.
Obviously, they're a hate group. So why can't we go after their funding?
What about the RICO laws? Can't we go after RICO laws or something? Something the administration.
How many Muslims do you know named Rico? And isn't it funny how they use a name like Rico to go after the mafia?
Hey, Rico.
Right?
How's your pizza? I have bad news for you. Your taxes.
You think that was by design?
Of course it was.
Of course it was.
Of course it was. Because
we're up against a break.
We hate everyone in this country.
When we come back, Sean's bringing it back with the election block.
The election block, all that and more here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cough for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHRmedia.com.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe from Reefer of Common Sense, and we have moved to a new night and time. Every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on SHRmedia.com, you will catch the Reefer of Common Sense uncensored, unfiltered, and only on SHRmedia.com.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Oh, yeah, I should probably turn that back on now. Hey, welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show. We are live on the SHR Media Network. If you're a Periscoper, we are on Periscope now. At least we're going to try it. I mean, nobody wants to look at our ugly face for that long, but what the hell, we'll give it a shot. If you're not on Periscope and you're listening via Spreaker, go to shrmedia.com. Click on the live chat. Get in the chat room. It only takes a few minutes. Come on, have some stones, would you? I missed. Oh, I love stories. So Dan Butcher does this to me all the time, where he'll send me a couple stories that are breaking news for some reason. The first one is titled, "What Happens When Food Drops on the Floor?" And that's something that should be talked about, of course. And the other one is, Pleiadian aliens will take over the Earth, and it's underway. So I appreciate Dan Butcher. And actually, my prayers are with Dan and his family, because they're dealing with some pretty nasty wildfires in the area. And he has a very close family member who's a firefighter down there, as well as his home could possibly be affected. He said the news got better as the day wore on, but everyone in the Texas Panhandle, be safe, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. This story, and you know what, I was going to bring it up at the end of the night, but Agador just brought up a great story. Did you hear about the truck crash that may have been like every single guy's dream in Florida?
No.
Apparently a Frito-Lay's truck crashed into a beer truck, and beer and chips were all over the freeway. Now, have you ever seen the videos of like the money trucks when they crash and there's people like snaking money out of it?
Yes.
Can you imagine what this crash looked like? I mean, thousands of miles people must have been coming from. That would have been awesome. I hope the drivers were okay, but
wow.
Reminds me of a picture of there was a ramen noodle delivery truck that rolled over. And there were ramen noodles everywhere, and it just said total loss 49 cents. Just made me laugh. I don't know why. So we got to get to the elections. Oh man, this has just been. I was talking today about what a crazy election cycle it is, and we were talking about the different things that could happen, as far as just brokered convention and all that BS that's going on right now. And just how crazy the election on both sides are really starting to get to. I mean, even on the Democrats, it's starting to get goofy. And as it stands right now, for the Republicans, Trump has 739, Cruz 465, and Kasich is 143. Trump is about 70% of the way there, 74% of the way there. Cruz is about 38%, and Kasich is negatives. I don't even know how you do that. On the Democrats, you have 1690 for Clinton, including 467 superdelegates. Sanders has 920 with 26 superdelegates. His numbers are starting to go up. The last one, of course, the big one was in Arizona, where Hillary won for the Democrats, 57.6% to Bernie, 39.9%. And then Trump with a commanding win, 47.1% to 24.9%. I ask you, and I really mean this, no matter who you support as far as Democrats, and even for the Republicans, at what point do the people who are trailing still start to step out of the way? Even if you don't agree, let's say for the conservatives, even if you don't agree with the majority of what Donald Trump stands for. By the way, there's a great article about the different tax plans that are out there and how Trump's could actually put money back in people's product, and I think that was actually on the Federalist as well, money back in people's pockets. But at what point do you start to realize it's about winning the election and start getting away from who you necessarily want to be the choice, the number one going in, the candidate?
When it comes down to the nominee, here's my issue with the Republican Party right now.
I have a lot.
I have a lot. I do. I have a lot. Look, whether you like Trump, you don't like Trump. Whether you like Cruz, you don't like Cruz. It's not going to be Kasich. But whoever the nominee is, if Trump gets the delegates, you may not like him. He may not have been your pick for Republican.
Mm-hmm.
He may not be your pick for president. But if that's who the nominee is, and look, you may not have the same answer I do to this question, and that's fine. But if it comes down to choosing between Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, my question is it worth either staying home and not casting a vote for Trump, or is it worth voting for Hillary Clinton so that Hillary Clinton gets elected, or not? Is a vote, because ultimately, look, we're at a time in our country, and I think this election is huge for numerous reasons, not least of which is the Supreme Court nominee. Do you really think it's smart, because you don't like Donald Trump for whatever reason, if he's the nominee, to not vote for him and to vote for another candidate or whatever just because you can't vote for Trump, knowing full well that in doing so, it's allowing Hillary Clinton to probably win the presidency.
Mm-hmm.
And probably finish fundamentally transforming our country through Supreme Court nominees, and they're going to get confirmed that they're not going to. Congress is not going to leave the Supreme Court seat vacant for 4 years,
right?
Because they don't like it. It's not going to happen, and people would be angry if they let that happen, and rightfully so.
Right.
But
it's just a great quote. I want to read to you when you're done.
Yeah. Are people, are Republicans in this country that, and look, if this is you, then that's fine. But I don't understand the mindset of, I just can't vote for Trump, so I'm going to vote for somebody else, knowing that the net result is going to be Hillary Clinton and, honestly, the downfall of our country. Look, if Trump is the nominee,
mm-hmm.
and you want to change the Republican Party created Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, 100%. So if this changes the party, if this wakes them up, if this gets them more conservative, whatever it is, is that not a good thing?
Right.
It is, right? If Hillary Clinton does not get elected and Donald Trump does get elected, isn't that a good thing that it's not Hillary?
Mm-hmm.
And really, that's kind of what we're fighting for right now. This election, even if it's Donald Trump, he still has to go through a Congress.
Right.
And even if the Republicans lose the Senate, let's say they lose the House and the Senate. Probably not, but let's say they at least lose the Senate. They're not going to be able to accomplish whatever the hell they want. And Donald Trump as president is not going to be able to accomplish whatever the hell he wants with either a Republican or a Democratic Congress. Whereas if Hillary Clinton gets in there, she's going to appoint a liberal Supreme Court justice.
Yes.
And whether it's a Republican or a Democratic Congress, that person will get confirmed.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Yep.
And if Ruth Bader Ginsburg retires and if there's another vacancy, she could potentially have, the next president could potentially have 3 vacancies to fill on the court. Which means because you didn't want to vote for Trump, you are going to now, for the next 25 years, the Supreme Court is going to be shifted to the left.
Mm-hmm.
Which means your 2A is going to be in
destroyed.
Grave danger. Your First Amendment, in terms of religious liberty, is going to be in extreme danger. So for me, it's going to come down to what's more important. Is it more important for me not to vote for Trump because I just don't like him and I don't agree with him and I morally can't see myself voting for a guy like that?
Right.
Or is the choice I vote for somebody else and I let Hillary Clinton get elected because I know full well that that's the result? And as a direct result of my actions or my inactions or my voting for somebody else, knowing that it's going to allow Hillary Clinton to become president and knowing that the country as I know it is going to disappear, what's worse?
Well, and you know what's funny
is it worse voting for somebody that you disagree with on certain levels but who is going to protect certain things? Or is it worse allowing voting for somebody else and allowing this other person to get in and really probably bringing about the downfall of America as we know it. And that's really what it comes down to for me.
Well, and I've seen a couple different things, pop up. One of the things that I hear a lot is the polls that put up Kasich and Cruz against Hillary, but they don't talk about how Donald will do, right? Right now, both Kasich and Cruz, polling-wise, could beat Hillary, but they don't talk about how the Donald would do. So
I think there's polling that shows that Hill Dog would beat Trump, right?
Right. And it would be close, but that's also as of right now with all the candidates in the mix.
Right, and my point is, how many people would stay home, do what they did for Romney? Romney was supposed to beat Obama, right?
Mm-hmm.
But people weren't excited about him. They didn't, whatever it was, they stayed home.
Well,
I think Democrats would stay home
the GOP,
for Hillary.
The GOP and Jersey Joe pointed this out in the 80s were afraid that Ronald Reagan would destroy the party. And look at what he became.
Yeah.
Agador had two really good comments. Number one has to do with your time on Periscope. How do you have two computers and not know how to chat? So that's, I said.
I never said I don't know how to.
But he also said, I'm only 90% sure Trump would hose the country. I'm 100% sure Clinton would.
And that's my point. Right? Look, Donald Trump will not hose the country economically. Donald Trump will not hose the country on 2A issues or on the Supreme Court.
Right.
He won't. And so even if his economic policy is garbage, even if his foreign policy is garbage, the fact that we get 25 years worth of Supreme Court and our liberties protected is a hell of a lot better than we would ever get from Hillary, because like you said, you're 100% sure Hillary's going to hose this country economically, internationally, and via the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Trump may hose us 2 out of 3.
Right.
And I'll take 1.
And he wins a good win at this point.
Exactly. And particularly the most important win, which is the Supreme Court. The economy will recover, particularly if you invest in lead and silver. Right? Internationally, we've been hosed for the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
Worst case scenario, we bomb freaking Putin. I mean, I don't know.
Right.
But
and again, it's one of those things that Congress needs to put bills on his desk before he can sign it.
Bill in his desk?
Put a bill on.
Like Clinton?
Yeah. Or a pass bill.
Go ahead and sign me, Donald. This will be like old times.
Right here in the ass.
Right here. Just sign this.
Right next to everyone else's name. You can put your name under the D's for the Donald.
Not under my D. Don't be sick, Donald. You know what I meant. Such a joker. Hillary, let's do body shots.
Jersey Joe in the chat room. The joke is on Hillary. If she gets elected, she'd have to sit at the same desk Monica knelt under. That would be interesting.
She'd have it moved.
She'd just sit on the floor. Listen, it's one of those things. We hear from the left all the time. We hear even from the right sometimes. Well, it's always what the people want. It's about what the people want. It's about what the people want. Right now, it kind of looks like the people want Trump.
Yeah.
And even if that's not everybody, the majority of people, it appears at this point, want Trump to be the nominee. Now, is there a chance that Donald Trump could lose the general election? Sure, there's a chance anything could happen. Is there a chance Hillary Clinton won't make the general election? Yes, there's a chance. So you have to start looking at numbers of Trump versus Sanders and or whoever else would jump in at the last minute. The problem is that
Biden.
How much longer was it? I want to say it's June is the last point anyone could throw their hat into the ring officially.
The parties could nominate whoever they want.
Right. But
let's say Hillary gets indicted.
And she's nominated.
Say
she nominates first, then gets indicted.
Right. Joe, you're up.
Herman Cain was on Fox today, and he was talking about all the negative things you hear about Trump and none of the positive things regarding taxes and the economy specifically, and how a lot of that has to do with, because there are the two other candidates there right now, when you get to the point that you've decided who your candidate is, if it is Trump, a lot of the negative things that are being thrown by Cruz, Kasich, and a lot of Mitt Romney and the likes of the establishment would go away, and you'd actually be able to focus on some more of the positive things that may come up of a Trump nominee. It makes strange bedfellows when Jeb Bush is supporting Ted Cruz, and that shows you that the establishment is even jacked up because they're going to go with the Tea Partier before they go with Trump. I would love to see a Trump-Sanders debate. Obviously, Trump-Biden debate would be awesome, too. I'm answering a couple of the chats. A Trump-Biden debate would be like Benny Hill on Adderall and in stereo. I think that...
Right.
Agador, that's outstanding. I agree. I think that would be one of the funniest debates on the face of the planet. It wouldn't shock me, though, if the Republicans try to go to this broker convention and you see Kasich get it and then Cruz as his running mate, and then Trump's left out of the mix. And as you said, Trump said he won't go third party, so does that mean he go to the Democrats and fill Hillary's shoes? Because Hillary's going to be indicted? Imagine if that happened. I was talking about this today with a guy I work with, Nate, and we were just talking about politics, and he's very sick of any establishment. Trump and Sanders, in his opinion, are the two that he would want to see one or the other. Trump first, then Sanders. And I reminded him that Sanders is the most establishment candidate out there. More than Kasich. More than Hillary even. His whole life has been either siphoning off the federal government to pay his way until he was 43, and then he was a mayor for a few years. Again, taxpayers paying his bill. And then he went to Washington. He's an absolute insider. So, the only non-insider anymore really is Trump. Cruz, I know a lot, and this has nothing to do with politics, but you're talking outsider, insider. Cruz during this election cycle has become an insider. They've gotten to him. He's seeking, when Mitt Romney is trying to come to your aid, when Jeb Bush is throwing his support behind you, you're an insider. They've cut deals. We know how that happens. Now, does that mean that I think Ted Cruz would make a horrible president? Absolutely not. Is the establishment going to get behind somebody? Yes, and I understand that.
They might not get behind Trump.
They may not.
They would get behind Cruz.
Right.
Grudgingly.
Yes.
But they might not get behind Trump. And look, that's wrong. If the establishment is so childish, in my opinion, that if Trump gets the nominees, or even if he's 100 delegates, 50 whatever it is, if he's short, but he's that close, he should probably get the nomination. But let's say he gets the delegates. Let's just take that argument out of the equation. If he gets the delegates and he's the presumptive, he gets the nomination. If the Republican establishment does not get behind him, if they run a third candidate, they would be complicit in the downfall of our country and in the election of Hillary Clinton. And that is not a party I want to be any part of. And I think if that happens, and if Hillary gets elected, I think that, boy, you thought the Tea Party movement was big.
Exploding
a few years ago. I think it's going to explode, and I think the Republican Party will be done. I think the Republican Party is kind of in death throes right now, and they've done it to themselves. I've said it before, but this is something they should really take notice of. And if they want to be in on it, they need to kind of embrace it and work with what's happening within the party. And guess what? If they did that, if they had done that 4 years ago, we wouldn't have Donald Trump in the race right now doing as well as he did. We'd have Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio kicking ass in this race right now.
Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Yep.
So
right. And look, I'm not saying I have any. I'm not saying. Look, do I agree with Trump on every? Of course not. Would Trump have been my number one pick? Of course not. Am I going to get behind Trump if he's the Republican nominee? Yeah, I am. Because the alternative is far too dangerous.
Well, and you start looking at, I put in the chat room when I talked, Agador said that, Trump's been buying the insiders for over 30 years, and that makes him an insider. And I said, all right, well...
No, it makes him a businessman, because he's been buying both sides.
Right. And that's what I was saying. He hasn't been bought, even if he's been doing the buying.
Exactly.
And there's a difference. Just because he has to play by their rules to be in business doesn't necessarily mean he has to like the rules.
Right.
But in order to keep employing people, earning a paycheck, there's a chance that he would... You can't get into big business and not have to negotiate and grease the wheels.
Right.
Because government is so huge, that's the only way you can get it done. It doesn't mean it's right, but if it means laying off everybody that works for you and losing a paycheck, I hate to say it, you have an obligation to those people.
So I had
as long as you're not breaking the law.
Right. So I had this discussion with somebody today also. Look, they said, well, Donald Trump, look at the way he acts. I said, okay, look, do you really think Donald Trump goes into a room full of bankers, a room full of other execs, a room full of whatever, and when he's negotiating multi-million-dollar deals, do you think he goes in and conducts himself that same way? Or do you think he knows how to go in and cater to that crowd, to work a room, to broker deals? He wouldn't be able to broker deals with anybody if he goes in rooms like he goes on. That's a performance.
Right.
He's
an actor.
He's performing for the crowd.
They've been elected too.
You want to know why you don't know perhaps exactly where he stands on every issue? Because he's a negotiator.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go into a negotiation showing your hand. I'm not saying that's right in a presidential contest, because I think we should know what his issues are, but I'm just explaining a certain perspective, right?
Well,
I can understand why he's not used to coming out and saying exactly what it is he's going to do, but I absolutely think that he can conduct himself appropriately.
Well, and Agador is saying he doesn't believe the businessman excuse. It's just you just admit that he's an insider, and that's the end of an issue.
Who admitted he's an insider?
Well, no, just admit. He's saying if you just admit he's an insider, it's kind of the end of the issue. I don't think he is an insider.
I
didn't follow him around prior to him running. I've seen him on TV shows. I know that he's a business guy, et cetera, et cetera. I don't see him in Washington full time. I know he's donated monies to campaigns. I know he's donated on both sides. I know he's done things to get his business. But when I say insider, me specifically, I mean the old guard GOP or Democrats,
right?
Who
been
it's
in Washington for 20 years,
30 years. Who it's all elected officials.
Yep, party officials,
who've worked for elected officials. Who's turning around and they're playing the whole "give me money and I'll pass your thing. I'll give you pork."
Right.
To me, that's the Washington insider. Now,
he's given money.
Does he know a bunch of people in those circles?
Yeah.
Of course he does.
But he's given money. He hasn't taken money, and that's the difference.
And Agador, if you and other people are considering that is an insider, okay, then he's an insider.
Well,
I don't consider that.
I disagree with Ag's definition of what an insider is.
I agree.
If that's if that's his definition of an insider, then okay.
Right.
Then to him, perhaps Donald's an insider. I'm with you, Sean. I don't consider that an insider.
And he's talking about deals. And listen, I understand. Prime example, and this is the easiest way to put it. I live in a county that doesn't issue CCWs. I hate it.
Which is illegal under the current.
Right. I hate it, and I think it's horrible. But that doesn't mean, in order to conduct business, I'm just going to carry my gun around and be in violation of the law.
Right.
You have to play within the rules that are there. I don't like it, but I respect the rules. Now, do I vote to change it? Yes. Do I write letters to try to change it? Yes. Would I support a lobby and actually give money if I thought I could get it changed in my county? Absolutely.
Would you have a vote Ed Prieto out of office campaign?
Absolutely.
Of course.
And I have the Constitution on my side.
Right.
I literally have the founding document supporting me, and I still can't fucking carry a gun.
And Ed Prieto doesn't.
So to turn around and say that makes you an insider because I disagree, but I live in the county, I don't have a choice. It's not the same. I don't agree with it, but I follow the rules.
And you give money to other people to
Absolutely.
try and change it. Doesn't mean make you an insider.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I have to follow the way things are. I have to follow the law. Now, is it the law for all the backroom deals? No, but it's the way government is. And does that mean that a person operating within Washington enjoys having to do all that? No. If you listen to Trump, he hates the oversight in business. He talks about it all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not a big stretch. It's the exact same thing. I'm being told it's a big stretch. It's not a big stretch.
It's not a big stretch.
You play within the rules that are established, and then when you have control, you can try to change the rules.
And I follow what you're saying. Donald has to operate within D.C., the rules that are established there, just as you have to operate within your county and the rules that are established there. Whether you like it or not, you got to play ball that way.
Exactly.
And same with Trump. You got to play ball that way. Donald Trump doesn't take money for his campaigns.
Right.
He gives money for his campaigns. All these other candidates take money for their campaigns. That's an insider.
And there's some stuff where
Trump's not beholden to anybody.
He's loaning himself money out of this and that.
So what? He's not beholden to anybody.
Right.
What's he going to do? Do favors for himself?
Right.
So
he probably will.
Right, but right. So hey, I gave you money for your campaign. Donald, you're so fabulous. I love your hair. Yeah. So I'm gonna. I mean, what's he going to do?
Right.
Talk to himself in a mirror? That's ridiculous.
What I'm just saying is I don't know if Donald Trump, the politician, Donald Trump, the businessman, are always going to be the same thing.
Probably not.
That being said, I'm still not 100% sure I would vote for Trump.
If it came between...
I'm talking about primaries and who I would want to be my candidate.
Right, I'm with you.
Because there are certain things that I think he does lack as a commander-in-chief.
Yes.
But there is also a lot of things I feel Ted Cruz lacks as commander-in-chief.
Yes. And so I'm talking primary aside. I'm talking general election. And look, I have to get back to this because this is killing me. If people can't see the difference between giving money to politicians and taking money... Mm-hmm. I'm speechless. We're up against a break. We're a minute overdue. When we come back, we've got Mississippi Madness to talk about.
Mississippi Madness. Mississippi Mud Madness. All that and more, which is what happens when you eat chili at a diner. All that and more here on the Sackheads Radio Show, live on the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Times are dark. The people misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation in confusion needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, High Plains Talk Radio, Live Rebooting Liberty, and YouTube for a unique brand of commentary on the unpleasant blind guide. Because truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians.
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
Hey, it's Jersey Joe from Reefer of Common Sense, and we have moved to a new night and time. Every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on shrmedia.com, you will catch the Reefer of Common Sense uncensored, unfiltered, and only on shrmedia.com.
Hello, I'm Matt, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is Hillsdale President Larry Arnn on the continuing relevance of the Constitution.
Many argue today that the Constitution is outdated because it addresses problems peculiar to the 18th century. Some parts of the Constitution do read rather quaintly. Consider the injunction against titles of nobility in Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution. But is that so outdated? The purpose of the injunction is to prevent the government granting special privileges to some for partisan reasons. This strikes at the heart of the rule of law. The crony capitalism so common today is a place where the government bestows favors and tax dollars on some businesses to give them a leg up over others. This is exactly the kind of thing the Constitution was meant to prohibit. The Constitution is not so outdated after all.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.com.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Sackheads Radio Show live in the SHR Media Network. I know you can hear us on Periscope during the break. We weren't saying anything we weren't supposed to.
No, Really? Everything we say on the air?
I know. I've dropped 3 F-bombs tonight. That's how you know I was in Boston this week.
A minimum of
That's
3.
how you know I was in Boston this week.
You picked me up tonight for dinner, and you said, the fuck do you want to eat?
That's exactly what I said.
Somebody came back from Boston. By the way, I have to give Sean ridiculous props for a dinner shot tonight. Our regular listeners like it when we talk about our dinner escapades. And this one's not funny. This one is just amazing. So Sean, we're sitting there eating, and we're eating at a particular establishment really quick. When we were prepping the show, doing our show stuff, and all of a sudden Sean, who is about as athletic as a sloth, Sean, really? So you're keeping the camera on you again? It's my blog.
I'm flipping it. I just had to flex first. Wait, and there we go.
Okay. So Sean's sitting there, and I'm about basically where your perspective is on the camera, and I'm Sean, and over my right shoulder,
it was further.
About 15 to 17 feet away.
Yep.
Is a trash receptacle. And this trash receptacle is in an enclosed space, but not with the opening on top, the round opening on top like you would think.
Front load only.
This opening was... Don't steal my story, Sean.
Sorry.
Don't steal my story. I need a Diablo sandwich and a Dr. Pepper. And there's a front load, and there's no swing door on it, right? So it's not like the golf game. But it's open, and the hole is about maybe total 8 inches tall. And the top of the trash can comes up a couple inches, which leaves 6 inches of open space. And the top of where the trash can is a place for trays.
Yes.
So he literally had a 6-inch gap, maybe 5. I'm going to go maybe 5-inch gap at a straight shot because it was at about eye level. To try and throw anything away. I mean, I'm Portuguese, so I would take a whole tray up there and try and fit that tray like in the slot flat and spill everything all over myself. It's ridiculous. When we go to this particular restaurant, Sean has to take the trash because it's embarrassing. But all of a sudden, from about 15, 17, 20 feet away ish, Sean's wadding up his. We're talking about show stuff, and all of a sudden I see Sean kind of wad his napkin. And this is the napkin I'm going to demonstrate. And he's wadding his napkin, and we're having a conversation, much like you're seeing right now. You're going to get people freaking seasick while I'm telling a story right now, Sean. So Sean wads this up, and all of a sudden I see him laying back, and I'm like, is this guy stretching? Because I've seen him play sports, and by sports I mean roulette. And all of a sudden he rears back.
Oh... Good.
And he fires it like that. And I look, and the thing goes dead on balls accurate, to quote Marissa Tomei, right into the freaking trash receptacle. And I looked at him, and I said, are you kidding me right now? And he gives himself like a high five in the air and like a fist bump, and he jumps up and goes, woo! And everybody in the restaurant's looking at him. And I couldn't even say, sit down, you're embarrassing myself, because I was excited, so I jumped up and I high-fived him. And then we did the chest bump thing, and we did an end zone dance as much as a couple of white guys can do.
Right.
And
it was the Icky Shuffle.
Yeah. It It was amazing.
It was pretty
Yeah,
amazing.
you looked like the refrigerator Perry when he scored a touchdown. I'm not going to lie. Just amazing. So I had to bring that up.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
and
you're welcome.
It was one of those things that I didn't think when I threw it I was even going to be.
You did, because I even commented. I looked at him. I said, "You just felt that, didn't you? Like you had to. You have never taken a shot like that in your life. I've known you for years. We've been around exterior trash receptacles every time we meet up, every time we see each other. You've never made it. You've never slam dunked a shot like that." And you said, "Actually, I did. I totally felt it. I just went for it."
Yeah, no, I just kind of leaned back, a little bit of arc on it because, like you said, there was no opening, so I had to get it just right.
It was perfect. It was like a 3-degree.
It was like it was like a change-up.
You know what it was? It was like the rise and fall of a 2-2-3 round. I mean, it was just that perfect arc, just that, from the point of when it left the muzzle or your hand or your paw, whatever it is, and it kind of went up and just arced perfectly and just crossed the other plane again. It was beautiful.
Well, it was like I said,
it was beautiful.
It
looked like you belonged on the Golden State Warriors. I'm not going to lie.
It was like a change-up. I threw it. It looked like a fastball, and just as it went over the trash can, the bottom fell out of it, and it just clumped right into the can.
It just perfect. It was perfect.
I was lucky.
You looked like an Oakland A's pitcher. It was just beautiful.
So up on the board, you have in other news.
Actually, I have Mississippi Madness.
Oh.
Yeah. So the Mississippi House of Representatives passed a law, and it's not signed into law yet, but there's a good chance it will be. It's House Bill 4. Apparently, they do a lot of business in Mississippi.
It's March. You know what, though? I'm okay with that. I'm not going to lie. I'm okay with that.
But they started their numbering system when they formed a state.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it's House Bill 4. And the bill is also known as the Parent Involvement and Accountability Act. Sounds good.
Right.
Right? Under this law, which was introduced by State Representative Gregory Halloway, who's a Democrat, it would mandate that a section be added to each report card for children in school in which the parents are graded on their responsiveness to communications with teachers, the student's completion of homework and readiness for tests, and the frequency of absences and tardiness. Let me rephrase. There's a law that passed in Mississippi.
Go ahead.
Not signed yet by the governor, but probably will be, I'm guessing. That's going to require report cards have a section added that teachers grade the parents. I would fail miserably. Because if I went to school and the teacher said, Mr. Sackhead, so your child is doing very well. However, your responsiveness to communications with teachers, particularly when we said that you had to teach your children to embrace other views and teach them the Muslim religion and so forth, you weren't very responsive. As a matter of fact, I think your words are, let me see my notes, fuck off. So you're receiving an F, and this is being reported to the state. And I would in turn stand up, rip it up, and say, fuck off. Are you kidding me? I would, it wouldn't surprise me if this wingnut legislation passed in California. But in Mississippi, and first of all, the stones that are required to allow a school teacher whose job it is to help facilitate the education of the kids to grade a parent? Wow.
Well,
think about that for a moment. Who's in charge of raising your child?
Oh, why don't I have Hot for Teacher on ready to play? Because
who's in charge of raising your child?
Of course, it's the parent's job. But we have nanny states, we have nanny believers who think it's their job.
Right, but this is a point, Sean. They passed a law.
Oh, I know. I know. It's batshit crazy.
Right?
It's absolutely batshit crazy. It's Moonbat 101. Now, the positive side of it in my head is maybe if it's a hot teacher, you'll get detention with her and have to do makeup stuff. Now,
did you say make out stuff?
Yes. Which is why I wish I had Hot for Teacher queued up on the board. The reality is it's very scary when government chooses to overstep their bounds on any level.
Yeah.
In particular in this place when it comes to the education of children and then the judging of parents from one person's perspective.
Right.
That gets reported to state on a database. Now, eventually what this will roll into is if you get enough negative remarks, the state's going to come in and raise your child because you're obviously not a good enough
You're
parent
not a
to
fit
handle.
parent. Right.
And that, to me, we go through progression, right? None of these laws ever come out what the end game is going to be. We know that. They implement this, and then what they'll do is start adding little rules underneath it from under the Department of Education that will eventually morph into discipline on the adult. Now, I think this is different than if the child is committing a crime, that you have the parent pay restitution, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of, and I've told stories before about my view on schools and how I think that they're out of control.
Yeah.
How they have too much power.
I mean, just like you said, from one person's perspective. So if you have a parent that disagrees politically with a teacher and no, little Johnny, little Susie, whatever it is, we don't believe that it's okay for X, Y, or Z, or whatever the issue is.
Right.
Evolution is not a fact, it's a theory, right? Creationism is not a fact, it's a theory. Whatever your teaching is, either side of the spectrum. If a teacher doesn't like your perspective, or doesn't like if you challenge any kind of their authority or their perceived authority or perceived challenge,
how dare you?
all of a sudden you're not responsive to communication.
Right.
No, I had a response.
You just didn't like it.
You just didn't like my response.
Absolutely.
But I responded.
Well, and there's a difference.
And then can you challenge your grade?
But this goes back to a lot of states overstepping their bounds when it comes to children.
Yeah.
In this case, it's the Department of Education. We know the Department of Education is wrapped into Obamacare. What if they eventually turn it around and say, hey, this is a great idea. We're going to implement this on any school that receives federal money. And if the parent isn't responsible enough, in our opinion, to raise their children appropriately, then they're probably not responsible enough for a gun.
Right.
And we know Obamacare wraps into the Department of Ed. We know that Obamacare wraps into the 2A thing now.
Yeah, and that's by design, folks.
Yes. Shit like this, I believe, is intentionally thrown out that way.
I want to bring something else up. I know this is kind of our miscellaneous news block. I think I even wrote whatev up there on the board of awesomeness. But a Clinton IT specialist, the guy who set up Clinton's server in her house, got immunity.
Right, we know that.
We know that. Got immunity. Well, what a devastating witness, right? And I want to think about this. I don't think the Justice Department gives immunity to somebody, particularly somebody with the depth of knowledge that this individual had, if they were not seriously considering going after an indictment for Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why I say that. I don't think that, in my opinion, if the Justice Department was going to go after a fall guy, if they were going to go after somebody and let Hillary Clinton off, it would be this guy. Because they could have said, you know what, this guy set up the server, Hillary Clinton had no knowledge, she didn't mean to break the law, she didn't do X, Y, or Z, and we're going to let her go, but this is the real guy that put our nation at risk.
Right.
Because he's an IT guy, he knows what the standards are, he set this program up. Hillary Clinton, she's an older lady, she doesn't understand this stuff. She doesn't know what's secure or not secure, and she thought her home server was secure and was tied to They could play that stupid, silly game
Mm-hmm.
and go after this guy and make him the fall guy. And while a lot of people on the right wouldn't like it because they would know it's bullshit, it's at least defensible bullshit to a limited degree, right?
Yes.
That's not what they did. They gave this guy immunity. And this guy doesn't get immunity because he's going to testify against another staffer.
No,
this guy is giving up information on Clinton.
Yep.
And that's why I think it's so key. And particularly with what he probably knows. I mean, people are going to, with the information that this guy's giving, with his cooperation, they're going to be able to pinpoint gaps in email record. There's a lot that they're going to be able to do that they otherwise would not have been able to do so. And I don't think they would have done that if they didn't have any kind of intention of going after her.
Well,
go ahead.
You know, it's just really funny to me that his one of the things that this whole Trump thing has caused is very, very little focus on what's going on with Hillary and a potential, major league potential, criminal investigation, potential indictment and conviction. And while everyone's worried about, what Donald Trump said about so-and-so's hands or vice versa or whatever, that story has been buried at the bottom of the news page, left and right. And that's something that...
and something else has been buried, and this is one that's near and dear to us, particularly with Chris Peranto and so forth. Hillary Clinton said, I don't know if you saw this, when she was talking about Libya,
one person.
Yeah, she said we didn't lose a single person in Libya during her time as Secretary of State.
Nope, not once. So just remember that. Not one person, according to Hillary Clinton, was lost as she was Secretary of State in Libya. So, it just shows you, though, they're doing everything they can to protect her.
Yep.
Everything they absolutely can.
Yep. And here's the full quote, just so that we're not misquoting her or taking her out of context. Here's the full quote. Now, Libya is not perfect. Now, is Libya perfect? It isn't. Libya was a different kind of calculation, and we didn't lose a single person. We didn't have a problem in supporting our European and Arab allies in working with NATO. Yeah, it seems pretty in context to me. It's not a single person.
Not a single one.
Not one. You know what? She's right. She's actually technically correct.
Right.
We didn't lose a single person. We lost 4.
That's right.
So what is the right getting all on her about for this?
Jerks.
She's technically correct.
They're just cherry picking.
They're cherry picking, and look, even when she says something that is correct, we on the right can't let it go. And I don't know why on this show we immediately jump to a negative, but as I'm reading the story now and as we're talking about it, I'm going to apologize to Madam Secretary. Madam Secretary, I apologize to you. You were technically correct when you said that we did not lose a single person during your time as Secretary of State in Libya.
Right.
And the follow-up to that would be, we lost 4. So, thank you for allowing me to apologize and set the record straight.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Hillary. Hey, there's another story I know we're running out of time. There's another story I want to talk about. And
is it the concealed carry guy that shot and killed this axe wielder at 7-Eleven?
No.
That's a feel-good story. Well, not
this isn't a feel-good story, though.
That's a 2A story.
But this
is not a feel-good story.
We talk about veterans and the VA not taking care of our veterans who fought for us, and we've heard all the horror stories. And this one happened Saturday in New Jersey, and it's just sad. A veteran who lit himself on fire and eventually died of the wounds outside the Atlantic County CBOC in Northfield, New Jersey, on the front step of the VA. He had been treated there in the past for mental health. The story is on disabledveterans.org. It was written just today. But he obviously felt like he was being left out in the cold, that they weren't taking care of him. He was seeking more psychiatric help, and it got to the point that this veteran, a person who served our country voluntarily, put himself in harm's way, felt the only alternative to dealing with the VA was lighting himself on fire and eventually succumbing to the injuries. And this happens a lot, and this story seems to be going by the wayside. We all know what a mess the VA is. Our dear friend Liz Loris has dealt with them for years, and a bunch of other vets that I know have dealt with the VA for years and have gone nowhere on little things and on big things. And the VA is still an absolute shit show and a mess. And it drove this poor person to the ultimate decision, unfortunately. And it's something that I wish people would highlight more and pay attention to what's going on. Our veterans need our help, and it's our job to take care of them, and I absolutely agree with that. When we talk about who gets what in this country, and we talk about how, people on welfare don't get enough free phone minutes or blah, 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 we still have veterans who are not being treated appropriately, who voluntarily served. And I just think that's something that we really need to take time. The VA needs to be fixed. So when we argue about who's the next president, I think that's something that needs to really be looked at, is who's going to fix the VA, who's going to lead the charge to fix the VA. This president said he was going to, and obviously, like everything else, this jackass hasn't done anything. But outside of the politics, this affects people's lives, and it affects our heroes. And that's something that we need to address sooner rather than later.
Well, I'm going to make us end on a happy note.
Okay.
Because that was
depressing.
I
know.
Important to bring attention to.
Yeah.
But depressing. I don't want to leave our folks that way.
I agree.
There is a push right now. 30 congressional members have signed on to sponsor a bill to award the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, World War II group, the Congressional Gold Medal.
Yeah.
For their exploits during World War II. And those of you that don't know what that group is, they were the Ghost Army group that set up inflatable tanks. They played phony radio transmissions,
all the
phony
time.
Noise over loudspeakers in order to draw the Germans away in Europe to think that the army was operating in a particular area while real fighting in the other units were being used elsewhere, to kind of draw resources away from where the real live U.S. units or Allied units were engaged. So they're just now being recognized. Finally.
Brilliance.
Brilliant job. They were called the Ghost Army. And there's a push right now to get them the Congressional Gold Medal as a unit. Very supportive of that. I think the members of Congress for taking notice and bringing this important issue up and finally making it right is excellent. So, again, thank you. What a phenomenal generation.
Yeah.
Our World War II heroes. They're a dying breed, a different breed. But
greatest generation for a reason.
Yeah, literally the greatest generation, and very, very happy about that. So that's a story to end on.
I agree. We have 4 minutes to go.
Listen, don't start with me, Sean, because the moment you say it's 3 minutes, actually 2 minutes and 53 seconds. The moment you say we have 4 minutes to go, you're going to come up with some other ridiculous, not so feel good story.
No, you know what?
And then you're going to depress everybody again.
I like the 7-Eleven CCW guy shooting the actual lunatic. I think that's a great story.
It's a good story. It's not a feel good story, but it is a
feel good story.
It's somebody lost their lives.
Well,
Granted,
yeah,
they
but
made bad choices. Listen, we should have done more to help them. And the reason you're laughing is because of your white privilege.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, our good friend Jersey Joe just launched a whole clothing and apparel site.
Really?
If you go to Riva.one, you can get the link, Riva.one. Shirts, you name it. The SHR.
Condoms.
Actually, Agador just said, let me know when the Reaver condoms, adult diapers, and lawn darts are available. So I agree.
Said you name
it. I
agree.
But I told
hang on, Reaver, do this. Make the condoms like huge, like that would fit a baby's arm, and then stamp extra small on them, like American extra small, and send them to North Korea and Russia.
So if you have a chance, check it out. Support a great cause. The SHR logo may be on a couple of them, and we very much appreciate that. More importantly, I am charging him something for the wall to send to us to put up on the wall here at the SHR Media Studios, which I actually want to start getting all of our affiliates to start sharing some swag that we can put up on the wall. So we have pictures.
We have a great picture from POF that's actually signed
that we need to put up
by the artist and by the Navy SEAL whose face is portrayed as the Patriot.
Yeah.
We have still yet to put up.
Yeah, and a couple more things, but you know what? We've made some small changes. We're going to work on getting the show more right. See if I can get that soundboard over there and make some adjustments here. But
baseball season,
baby. Right
Notice
around.
I'm wearing my
my
green and gold.
I notice, and for me, because the Punisher is on Daredevil again, and they actually got the Punisher right, I'm wearing my Punisher.
Like on the
shirt.
series?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
The television series, right?
Yeah, Netflix. You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh.
Is it good? Are they going to that because he's that's Marvel, right? I think Daredevil's Marvel.
Yeah, no, Daredevil is Marvel.
Matter of fact, he was part of the new Avengers, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. It's going to be a good one.
I wonder if he's going to be kind of rolled into the movies.
No, I don't think they're going to go that far with it. I don't think you'll see Daredevil that far in or any of the characters there. Punisher, if you see it, they've actually done the Punisher right. Now, I'll leave it at that because I don't want to get into too much because they did a really good job.
Have you seen the trailer for Suicide Squad?
Yes, looks great.
I wonder if they're doing that because of the whole Batman-Superman thing, Intro to Justice League.
Oh, yeah.
Right,
they
so
have
they have
to.
the bad guys and the good guys.
They absolutely have to. A lot of good movies coming out. If you're
I'm not a big
comic book
DC
geek.
fan. Ever since Superman renounced his citizenship and Green Lantern likes penis in his mouth, I haven't been a DC fan. What? I didn't judge it.
No, I know. Remember we got Sacco the Green Lantern shirt and he thought it was awesome?
Yes. Right after that came out. And then how dejected he was when we finally broke it to him after he'd been wearing it around for like 3 days. I haven't seen him wear it since.
No, once. Folks, that's it for the Sackheads Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We'll be back next Wednesday, 8 Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. Check us out, shrmedia.com. Check out all of the great affiliates and shows that we have: The Unpleasant Blind Guy, The Exceptional Conservative, The Reverb Common Sense, High Plains Pundit Radio. Check us out on Spreaker. Follow at Sackhead Clint, at Edge of Liberty, or at Sackheads. We're also on Facebook. We'll see you next week. Have a great rest
Don't forget to
week.
sign your programming notes.
Oh, programming notes. Got to sign it. We're going to eBay it.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America, Sackheads Radio. And listen, there are no people better on the air to give you the best in conservative talk than Sackhead Sean and Sackhead Clint. And we're working on the immigration papers for a certain other guy who happens to work here, too. For those who are tuning in around the world to the best in late-night conservative talk, Sackheads Radio.
Sack news. Sack news.
Radio.
Sack news. Sack news.
Radio.
The best late-night conservative talk show in America. In America.
In America.
And in this web was a large, I'm pretty sure it was the biggest spider I've ever seen.